sort of a comfortable living room setting, and we share some stories. And we're going to do something even a little bit more different than that this week. We're going to share some stories that were featured on a wonderful program on NPR called Tinsel Tales. Has anyone ever heard the Tinsel Tales broadcast on NPR? Wonderful set of Christmas stories. They do it every year on Christmas Eve. And one of the stories that I heard several years ago was about something that a lot of us probably hadn't heard about. You may be hearing about it this year more than ever. The Christmas truce of 1914, because this is an auspicious occasion. This is the 100th anniversary of the World War I Christmas truce. And so we're going to start out this morning by listening to a historian tell us a little bit about what happened in the trenches during World War I at Christmas time.
In the First World War, men huddled in cold, damp trenches across the expanse of Europe, facing off just yards from their enemies for months at a time. One December night, something extraordinary happened. Here's historian Douglas Brinkley.
It was Christmas Eve 1914, and all was quiet on the Western Front. For 5 months, Europe had been torn apart in what was touted as the war to end wars. The Allies, France, Great Britain, Italy, and Russia, had already engaged the Central Powers of Austria-Hungary, Germany, and the Ottoman Empire in bitter battles. New levels of mass carnage took place on the battlefield, courtesy of such modern marvels as machine guns, mustard gas, and landmines. Now winter had arrived, bringing with it frostbite and hypothermia, the curse of every ill-clad German or British soldier unlucky enough to be shivering in the icy trenches along Germany's border with France and Belgium. A collective sadness swelled across the isolated forest that Christmas Eve. But that night, from the German trenches, a familiar tune floated over the battlefield. The British soldiers, hunkered down in their foxholes a quarter-mile away, answered. The German army, not to be outdone, began decorating evergreen trees on the hillside by lighting candles in their branches. Before long, an informal ceasefire, inspired by soldiers at war, blossomed into a formal truce. Arms were dropped as both German and British soldiers embraced in a neutral zone called No Man's Land. Soon thousands of these soldiers were swapping insignias, kicking soccer balls, and exchanging holiday cards. One British soldier wrote home to explain his disbelief over what had just transpired. Just you think that while you were eating your turkey, I was out talking and shaking hands with the very men I'd been trying to kill a few hours before. It was astounding. Never before, or since, has a complete truce been honored in wartime to celebrate Christmas. Although the killing resumed on December 26, the newspapers in London and Berlin headlined stories about the power of peace in wartime. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, best known for Sherlock Holmes' whodunits, deemed the Christmas truce an amazing spectacle, believing history would honor it as one human episode amid all the atrocities which have stained the memory of war. It would be foolish, however, to attach some overweening lesson to be learned from the Christmas truce, but over the years, every time I hear a church choir or country crooner sing Silent Night, I think back to World War I, when for a moment, a battlefield became a place of peace.
Historian Douglas Brinkley.
And if you would just pause that right there, because this is the perfect time now to have Billy and Kelly come up. There was a very special song that was written to commemorate the Christmas truce of 1914 by a fellow named John McCutcheon, who performs here locally. I know a couple of times a year you see him appearing over in Nevada City. And so Billy and Kelly have prepared this very special song for us. It's called Christmas in the Trenches.
My name is Francis Tulliver, I come from Liverpool. 2 years ago the war was waiting for me after school. To Belgium and to Flanders, to Germany, to here, I fought for king and country I loved dear. 'Twas Christmas in the trenches where the frost so bitter hung. The frozen fields of France where still no Christmas song was sung. Our families back in England were toasting us that day. They're brave and glorious lads so far away. I was lying with my messmate on the cold and rocky ground when across the lines of battle came a most peculiar sound. Says I, now listen up boys, each soldier strained to hear, as one young German voice sang out so clear. He's singing bloody well, you know, my partner says to me. Soon one by one each German voice joined in harmony. The cannons rested silent, the gas clouds rolled no more, as Christmas brought us respite from the war. As soon as they were finished and a reverent pause was spent, God rest ye merry gentlemen, struck up some lads from Kent. The next they sang was still a knot, 'tis silent night, says I, and in two tongues one song filled up the sky. There's someone coming towards us, the frontline sentry cried. All sights were fixed on one lone figure trudging from their side. His truce flag like a Christmas star shone on that plain so bright, as he bravely strode unarmed into the night. Then one by one on either side walked into no man's land. With neither gun nor bayonet we met there hand to hand. We shared some secret brandy and wished each other well, and in a flare-lit soccer game we gave 'em hell. We traded chocolate, cigarettes, and photographs from home. These sons and fathers far away from families of their own. Young Sanders played his squeeze box and they had a violin. This curious and unlikely band of men. Soon daylight stole upon us, and France was France no more. With sad farewells we each began to settle back to war. But the question haunted every heart that lived that wondrous night, whose family have I fixed within my sights? 'Twas Christmas in the trenches where the frost so bitter hung. The frozen fields of France were warmed as Christmas songs were sung. For the walls they kept between us to exact the work of war had been crumbled and are gone forevermore. Oh, my name is Francis Tulliver, in Liverpool I dwell. Each Christmas come since World War I, I've learned its lesson well. That the ones who call the shots won't be among the dead and lame. And on each end of the rifle, we're the same.
A wonderful Christmas present from John McCutcheon and Kelly Garmeyer and Billy Benson. Thank you. And unfortunately, there's never been another Christmas truce quite like that one. Looks like we have some messages to learn, and that there's still more that the Christmas spirit has in store for humankind. Well, there are other kinds of peace on earth other than just truces during wartime. This next story is very simply titled John Henry Faulk's Christmas Tale. For those of you who've never seen him, this is John Henry Faulk. And he was a folklore, a collector of folklore, and one of the reasons why we are doing this using a recording, as you are about to hear, John Henry Faulk relates this story in a way that I could not hope to imitate. And rather than say any more, we're going to go ahead and play this next track, John Henry Faulk's Christmas Story.
In 1974, the NPR program Voices in the Wind first broadcast The Christmas Story, written and read by John Henry Faulk. Faulk died in 1990. In 1994, we pulled the tape from our archives and put it on the air at Christmas. You loved his story and his reading of it so much that it's become an annual tradition on our show. So it's our pleasure to continue that tradition today.
The day after Christmas a number of years ago, I was driving down a country road in Texas. It was a bitter cold morning. And walking ahead of me on the gravel road was a little barefooted boy with nondescript ragged overalls and a makeshift sleeve of a sweater tied around his little ears. I stopped and picked him up. Looked like he was about 12 years old and his little feet were blue with the cold. He's carrying an orange. And he got in and had the brightest blue eyes one ever saw, and he turned a bright smile on my face and says, I'm going down the road about 2 miles from my cousin's. I want to show him my orange old Santa Claus brought me. But I wasn't going to mention Christmas to him because I figured he came from a family that kind of don't have Christmas. But he brought it up himself. He said, did old Santa Claus come to see you, mister? And I said, yes, we had a real nice Christmas at our house, and I hope you had the same. He paused for a moment, looked at me, and then with all the sincerity in the world said, mister, we had the wonderfulest Christmas in the United States down at our place. Lordy, it was the first one we ever had there. See, we never do have them out there much. Don't notice when Christmas time comes. We'd heard about it, but never did have one because, well, you know, it just, Papa said old Santa Claus, Papa Hoorahs a lot, said old Santa Claus was scared to bring his reindeer down into our section of the county because folks down there so hard up that they liable to catch one of his reindeer and butcher him for meat. But just several days before Christmas, a lady come out from town and she told all the families through there, our family too, that there was old Santa Claus was coming to town to leave some things for us, and if Papa'd go in town, he could get some Christmas time for all of us. Papa hooked up the mule and wagon. He went in town, but he told us children, said, now don't y'all get all worked up and excited because there might not be nothing to this yarn that lady told. But shucks, she hadn't got outside up the lane there. So we was done watching for him to come back. We couldn't get our minds on nothing else, you know. And Mama, she'd come to her once in a while and say, now y'all quit that looking up the lane because Papa told you there might not be nothing. But along about the middle of the afternoon, well, we heard the team of jangling the harness a coming, and we ran out in the front yard, and Ernie, my little brother, called out and said, yonder come Papa. And here come them mules just in a big trot, you know, and Papa standing up right in the bed of that wagon holding 2 big old chickens, all feathers picked off. And he was just yelling, Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas. And the team stopped right in front of the gate, and all us children just went swarming out there like a flock of chee-chees, you know, and just crawling over that wagon and looking in. And mister, I wished you could have seen what was in that wagon. It's bags of striped candy and apples and oranges and sacks of flour and some real coffee, you know, and just all tinsely and pretty. And we couldn't say nothing, just kind of held our breath and looked at it, and Papa standing there just waving them 2 chickens and yelling, "Merry Christmas to you, Merry Christmas to you," and laughing, that big old grin on his face. And Mama, she come a hurrying out with the baby in her arms, and when she looked in that wagon, she just stopped, and Papa, he dropped them 2 chickens and reached and caught the baby out of her arms, and held him up and said, "Merry Christmas to you, Sandy Claus," and baby, the little Alvy Lee, he just laughed like he knowed it was Christmas too, And Mama, she started telling us to name all of them nuts. It wasn't just peanuts. She had a name for all of them. Mama knows a heap of things like that. She'd seen that stuff before, and we was all of us just chattering and going on at the same time. Us young'uns are looking in there. And all of a sudden we heard Papa call out, "Merry Christmas to you, Sam Jackson." And we stopped and looked, and here comes Sam Jackson leading that old cripple-legged mule of his up the lane. And Papa said, "Sam Jackson, did you get in town and get some Christmas this year?" Sam Jackson, he sharecrops over there across the creek from our place. And he shook his head and said, "Well, no, sir, Mr. Will, I didn't go in town. I heard about that, but I didn't know it was for colored folks too. I thought it was just for you white families." All of a sudden, none of us children were saying nothing. Papa, he looked down at Mama. Mama looked up at him, and they didn't say nothing, like they don't a heap of times, but they know what the others are thinking. They're like that, And all of a sudden, Papa, he broke out in a big grin again. He said, "Dad blame it, Sam Jackson, it's sure a good thing you come by here. Lord have mercy, I like to forgot. Old Sandy Claus would have me in court if he'd heard about this. The last thing he asked me if I lived out here near you. Said he hadn't seen you around, and said he wanted me to bring part of this out here to you and your family, your woman and your children." Well, sir, Sam Jackson, he broke out in a big grin. Papa said, "I'll tell you what to do. You get your wife and children and you come down here tomorrow morning. It's going to be Christmas time all day long. Come early and stay late." Sam Jackson said, "You reckon?" And Mama called out to him and said, "Yes, and you tell your wife to be sure and bring some pots and pans, because we're going to have a heap of cooking to do, and I ain't sure I've got enough to take care of all of it." Well, sir, old Sam Jackson, he started off leading that mule up the lane in a full trot, He was heading home to get the word to his folks and his children, And next morning, you remember how it was yesterday morning? Just rosy red and looked like Christmas time. It's cold, but you didn't notice the cold, when the sun just come up, just all rosy red. And us young'uns were all out of bed before daylight, it seemed like, just running in the kitchen and smelling and looking. And it is all there, sure enough. And here comes Sam Jackson and his team and his wife and his 5 young'uns in there. And it's all looking over the edge, and we run out and yell, "Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas." And Papa said, "Christmas gift to you, Sam Jackson. Y'all come on in." And they come in, and Mama and Sister Jackson, they got in the kitchen, and they started cooking things up. And us young'uns started playing Christmas time. And it's a lot of fun, We just play Christmas gift with one another and run around and around the house and just roll in the dirt, And then we started playing, go up to the kitchen door and smell. And we'd run up and smell inside that kitchen door where Mama and Sister Jackson was cooking at. And we'd just die laughing and roll in the dirt, And then go chasing around playing Christmas gift. And we played Christmas time till we just wore ourselves out. And Papa and Sam Jackson, they put a table up, put some sheets over it, some boards up over some sawhorses. And everybody had a place, even the baby. And Mama and Sister Jackson said, "Well, now it's ready. Come on in, we're going to have Christmas dinner." And I sit right next to Willie Jackson, and he just rolled his eyes at me, and I'd roll mine. We just died laughing, and there was an apple and an orange and some striped candy at everybody's place. And that was just dessert. See, that wasn't the real Christmas dinner. Mama and them had done cooked that up, and they just had it spread up and down the table. And so Papa and Sam Jackson, they'd been sitting on the front porch, and they come in. Papa, he sit at one end of the table. Sam Jackson sit at the other, and it was just a beautiful table like you never had seen. And I didn't know nothing could ever look like that and smell that good, And Sam Jackson, you know, he's real black, and he had on that white clean shirt of his and them overalls. Everything had been washed and was real clean. Papa, he said, Brother Jackson, I believe you're a deacon in the church. I ain't much of a church man myself, but I believe you're a deacon. Maybe you'd be willing to give grace. Well, Sam Jackson, he stood up there, and his hands was real big, and he kind of held on to the side of the table, you know. But he didn't bow his head like a heap of folks do when they're saying blessing. He just looked up and smiled. And he said, Lord, I hope you having as nice a Christmas up there with your angels as we're having down here. Because it's still it's Christmas time down here. And I just wanted to say, Merry Christmas to you, Lord. Like I say, mister, I believe that was the wonderfulest Christmas in the United States of America.
The Christmas Story, told and written by the late John Henry Falk. Our annual holiday gift to you. This is NPR's Weekend Edition. I'm Leanne Hansen.
So peace on earth comes in many different forms. And that's just another dream that we have at this time of year when there is true community among all of humankind, that we learn that message in all of its forms. And so you might have noticed that both of those stories were sort of joined together by a common theme. Did you hear Silent Night playing in both of those clips? Well, here at Unity of Auburn, for the longest time, the only time that we sang Silent Night during the Christmas season was at our annual Christmas Eve candle lighting service, which, by the way, this year is this Wednesday evening at 7 o'clock, just as in the past. But we decided that we'd like to sing it sometime here on Sunday, and so I think this would be the perfect day and the perfect time for us all to join together with Silent Night.